but we will, so we're going to defer that to the next meeting. And Patrick will be doing those and do these as well. He's going to do that from the recording on this one. Okay, for administrative matters, first a public comment. Is there anybody who's, there's nobody here for public, no public. On administrative matters, Carl Foss, as we mentioned before, has resigned, so Jack is moved up to be from alternate to full voting member.
Please explain how that was decided.
That was decided. It was decided by basically it was a jump ball as to which way it was going to go, but we did it by who had the best attendance since the committee started, and so Jack had the best attendance. It was really hard, it could be either way. It needed some sort of criteria, and that's what I did. As a practical matter, I think we're going to have another opening as well. And so I've already talked to Patrick about having the select board select 2 more people for alternates. So if you have any ideas of people you think would be good, I appreciate it if you could send me their name and contact information. It doesn't have to be, it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be somebody in town meeting or whatever. It could be great to get some of the people involved in this. There have been some people I know who talked to me who've been listening to our sessions. And so if it's somebody who has that kind of interest or they're already listening, all the better. But if not, we can catch them up as well. So anyhow, send me something if you know of anybody who might be interested.
I think 14 more than needed people who applied for this position.
14 more than needed, 14 total.
Right, what I'm saying, they've been.
The select board is going to be the one who select the people to do that. And I don't know if they have, whether the people who were interested are still interested or whatever. So, I think it's a new day in town, for doing this. Once I find out select board, I'm going to run an ad in the local paper. And we'll see how that goes, but more on that to come. Any other questions about any of that? Well, it's right here.
Come on, Jack.
Okay, so we're going to start with the communication committee. One more administrative matter, just for the subcommittee on the stakeholder interviews. The group has started the test interviews to kind of test the questions and how we do it and how we get the feedback back, et cetera. They started this week. And so and once we do that, it's already been announced at the town department head meeting today that we'll be doing stakeholder interviews for this committee so that the employees know about it. So that's good. So we're checking off our to-do list on that. And now I'm going to hand it to
question.
Yeah.
About that. This round of interviews is just employees of the town?
It's employees or people working directly with the town. So it's employees, board members, committee members, and town meeting members. And we're doing a little representative sample of those. It's not the community survey. Yeah. That's a whole different.
I was curious if it included town.
Yeah.
Since we're doing a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay, Jess, you're up.
Okay. So the communications committee update, also my fellow members can give an update or add because they're in the room. But basically we wanted to just come back and share with you all. We had met Nikki, Russell, and I to kind of talk about what would be some of the key moments that we would want to communicate about the committee. And we wanted to share those, get buy-in, see if there are any concerns. So we'll go over those in a sec. And then we also kind of talked about where we would want to use direct mail, just because we talked about last time or the previous time that we had presented that we know we would have to ask for money. And so in order to ask for money, we would obviously want to understand how many times and how we would want to do direct mail. And then give another quick update on a couple other items. But to start with the moments that we felt like we wanted to communicate, obviously we are now starting to get into the time where we are making decisions for recommendations. We're not making just decisions. At the end of the day, we are going to be making recommendations, but we are making some decisions about the recommendations. And so we don't have a ton to go off yet, I think, to really share with the general public. So the idea is to kind of give it a little bit more time, but our goal is between November and December to do some what we're calling primers. And so we'll really kind of start up on social media a little bit more. And the reason too why we're waiting for November and December is because Patrick is kindly helping us with continuing to enhance the website. Russell is working really hard on kind of an improved outline and organization of that. And then Nikki and I will also be helping. Well, I mean, I'm going to be starting on some of the content or language to fill that in. And, Nikki has also advised that she can support there. And so we really want the website in a great place before we start to really push anything out externally, just knowing that at the end of the day, we really want to drive people to the website because that's going to be our single source of truth. So when we kind of asked ourselves, okay, when do we feel like we could have the website in a great place? We're really kind of aiming for that deadline of mid-October, November 1st at the absolute latest. And so once the website is in a place where we really feel great about that, then we kind of start with those primers on social, encouraging people to go to the website to see. And again, I mean, feel free to interrupt me, teammates, if there's anything you want to add in.
Yeah,
was there?
when do you think you will be coming back to the committee to share with them kind of the results of what you're doing? Because I think the process should be we could kind of come back to the committee and kind of do a show and tell of what you're talking about so that we're all on the same page. We know what it looks like, and maybe, if there's suggestions to be made, make them. Or
I suppose I'll jump in here in that, at least for one part, we have a website that we want to build out.
Yeah.
This is going to live on the Burlington website that the committee already decided. In the interest of trying to get things up and running, I'm already working with Patrick to sort of say, here's an outline. We can modify it to our heart's content. I don't know how soon he will make progress, but we have to also generate content for it. But just sort of the structure of it, I definitely was moving under the impression of we need to get a website up and get cooking because we need to tell people. If we wait weeks and weeks, we sort of have waited. So I would almost, if it's okay with the committee, prefer we take the outline, which I can certainly can't mail it to you. I don't know how to give it to you except waiting a few weeks to present it again. But you show you the outline that exists. It's not rocket science, but it is just trying to organize the information. Some of the things, given that outline, we have asked Jess and Nikki to create some content to fill it.
Yep.
That has yet to be created, so there's nothing to review there. And we've asked Patrick to start to form the outline on the website itself.
If we say, we meet in 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks from
Sure.
something like that. If we said by the next meeting that we could have the outline and the copy for review, was that, Jess, do you think that's reasonable? Russ, do you think that's reasonable?
For sure. And I would say too, like, keep in mind that everything is editable. If there's some content live that we're like, this should be tweaked or rewritten, we can do that super easily. I feel like it might even be easier to review it live. And so if everybody agrees, what I would like to do maybe the next meeting or prior to the next meeting is we can circulate, hey, because we're not driving to it right now. I don't think that many people are going to stumble upon it, but we can kind of share what it looks like and then folks can look at it and bring feedback to the next meeting if that sounds reasonable.
It's also worth noting, there are some aspects where, for example, one item that we wanted to have present within it is an infographic about the process itself. I would argue.
Which I did send a note to Patricia. Pat,
Oh.
sorry. Yep.
That process is as yet not entirely crystal clear. So obviously, you can't have a thing until you know what you're trying to communicate. So that's a thing where, yeah, that we would need to bring back and talk with everybody, and sort of take a look at things. I know we asked you, and I took a stab at, maybe this is what I think we're doing. Maybe that looks like, and Patrick took a stab at something. And so we're all like, maybe some things. So there is some moment where we need to come together and say, what is it, so that we're clear about it, and then that can turn into something that then is readable to a person. So that's useful.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think, you know, I don't want to rush you or not rush you, you know, but I do think there needs to be a, you know, bring it back here. If it's live, that's fine because it is real-time stuff. But I want to make sure that we're comfortable with how it is, and that because we have different technology proficiencies represented in this board, so we can have, you know, people find it easy, and some people might not so much. At least it'd be good to know what it is, and there might be comments about the content as well.
Yeah, and I think Jess is probably going to talk about this, but we also talked about other key moments to be mailing things out to people, to be communicating about the board or about the committee. One was, I believe we decided in January, like a big push to let people know. Jess, you want to?
Yes. Yeah. So the idea is our big kickoff will be in January, where we would be like, hey, we exist. Here's the process. A mailer with information in terms of who we are, drive to the website. And really, the idea is then starting in January all the way through May, there's consistent information being fed and social, website being updated, just knowing that according to the existing work plan, which I would love to kind of see an updated one based on where we're at, you know, all of our recommendations are supposed to be complete by July. And so the idea is like January through May, we're regularly feeding information so that also when we have the public input session in May and June, hopefully people are like, okay, I've at least seen this. I may not have followed everything or understood everything, but I've seen it. The concept of the committee is not a new concept for me. I at least understand this committee exists. What you all are doing, maybe not. And you know, also knowing that there's going to be a, I think, public survey at some point in this process too. We really thought it would be beneficial to utilize a mailer for a public survey to really just kind of maximize reach there, not only because if we really rely on social, you're typically going to get a type of audience from social versus if we can kind of expand that to channels where you're going to have more of a representation of the town. That's something that we really wanted to do also for mailer. And then honestly, once if we stay on track and we're finalizing our recommended or report in July, I mean, the idea is that we're really kind of going big between July and, you know, through the end of the year if we're on track to go to town meeting January 2027. The other thing I wanted to note, and then I'll pause for questions and discussion, is that we know that throughout this time period, obviously we're hoping to post content pretty regularly based on our meeting schedule. And what we do want to try to work into the agenda, again, so folks don't feel like we're just out here doing whatever we want, is at the end of every meeting, kind of recapping, okay, these are the recommendations we decided on this meeting. These are some of the things we discussed. Is everyone okay if we, you know, we're going to plan to share this information? Any thoughts, any concerns about the fact that we're going to put out this information? So the idea would be that like at the end of every meeting, we align on these are the things we're going to talk about and put out there for public, even though obviously everything we're discussing here is already available to the public. The idea is that we would all align on this is some things that we're going to really kind of hone in on, synthesize, summarize for our social channels or the website to make sure everybody on the bigger committee has buy-in before we post any of that.
Also, at least from the idea of in the website, the idea would be there would be a section that's devoted to the meetings, right? Kind of like right now, it's just a list of things with, you know, the minutes and whatnot. Obviously, each meeting would have minutes and things. The idea would be we would have an explicit way for the committee to say, here are the things we want to make sure you, the public, understand we looked at or called out or are planning to look at or something like that. So basically, it's a way to explicitly make sure that if something needs to be communicated, we can capture it and get it out there.
When you say a mailer, you're talking physical card that's sent to every household or every registered voter, or is this email?
A mailer would be a physical direct mail piece.
I don't think we have the capability.
Oh, and on the website, one of the things we're hoping to do is that form where people can submit questions, feedback, what have you. So hopefully too through that we get maybe some trickles of contact information of people who might want to be updated electronically.
And any questions about any and all of that? The
Oh,
one
sorry, one other thing I would add too is I would say probably not for September town meeting, but January town meeting, when we give an update to the committee, it would be great in January to plug the website. So that that's one less thing that we have to try to get out to as many people. We can ask town meeting to, share the website, share the information with their constituents.
So you would share it at that meeting is what you think, Jess?
I wouldn't share it in town meeting, but we would say like, hey, our website's live. There's a lot of great information here. We're going to be communicating to the public, but really would love your help, town meeting members, to also share with your constituents this information.
That's going to be in January, you said, Jess?
Yeah,
Well,
January. I mean, we're supposed to be giving updates every town meeting, right?
So you won't be giving an update in September?
Yes. And that was going to be my next question, is that in September, I definitely want to give an update. And one of the things that Jess and I have been talking about is the overall kind of the project plan in a readable format, kind of the high level project plan, and Jess had some models that I thought were particularly good that she has shared with Pat. And so we're waiting for the Collins Center to get it back to us. But this is September, so we need you to get back to us.
2 weeks then.
Right. And I'm going to need some time to give whatever. It's going to be a short presentation.
Great.
5
5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, 5 or 10 minutes. I'll have some slides, and Jess and I will work on what seems to make sense to communicate from this group. Certainly, everybody's names going to get communicated, and then beyond that, we'll figure out what we're going to communicate for that. So the big thing is having that schedule, which I think will be used for multiple purposes once we have it.
So at the end of this meeting, Betsy, would you mind if I just take half a minute to say, like, here are the key topics we're thinking? Is this okay with everybody? This is like the preliminary list of things to communicate to the public.
Sure.
We're not going to put anything out to the public quite yet, but just so that we have this running list, we can summarize these things on the website and take them up.
So Nikki, keep me honest on that one, okay? So before we end.
Ross, keep me honest.
Great. Everyone's.
You're just all pointing.
All right. Okay, anything else? I'm really excited about this, guys. Good work, and having a website that is more than a repository for, I went to the website, and you really have to have a real passion for wanting to go find out something in order to navigate it at the moment. So having it make some sense is going to be just terrific. So thank you.
And thank you to Patrick, who's doing all the legwork.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Awesome here, but
yeah.
He's listening.
Yeah, he's doing the minutes, so he'll write himself into the minutes. Okay, so next. This is
I'm giving him.
yeah.
okay, so we haven't done any of this, so I don't know what the format or procedure is, and I thought I would invent it. And so I was thinking part of what we could do here is when we're coming up with something that's going to be language that goes into the charter, obviously, if you've read the draft that was circulated before, things will be worked in and we'll have discussions and things will come out of it. There's other things where there would be alterations to bylaw, and I'm not exactly sure how that would appear with respect to the report or the list of the changes, or I don't know how. But in this case, what I thought would make sense is just to sort of try to formally capture what a recommendation would be from us. Try to make sure we elicit what are we looking at, why are we making this, this choice, and then sort of try to say what that choice would be. Obviously, the purpose of this is for us to evaluate this. Maybe we don't like any of this words, but this is what I put together. So the idea here is that this particular recommendation would be specifically about the town meeting handbook. I mean, you want me to read it, or should you all?
Or, yeah, and
Okay.
can you just summarize each
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. So the first series of points are essentially outlining what we did, what we learned in the meeting through our deliberations, through education and looking at different materials and things, and ultimately acknowledging that the handbook is this important document that's serving a role that hasn't been like explicitly called out in the past. And obviously it contains procedures and rules of town meeting. It also contains other things that we think are useful and valuable, like the context for some of those and a little bit of history, which is actually kind of nice. People have commented that's nice. So while it was created on the fly just for new members, it's actually valuable to everybody, including the public. And so we wanted to make sure that this document didn't sort of languish or not have a clear owner. It has been maintained, I think, by the town clerk and various town clerks in the past, which is lovely, but also let's make sure we had talked about the fact that there already exists a committee that is a part of town meeting, that is the rules committee. Right? Not part of town meeting, but
Is part of town.
right, so I have that correct. And that, part of what was listed in the bylaw was that they review matters and make recommendations relating to the conduct of town meeting, and this felt like a thing that made sense. And so then, given all those things, it's sort of almost like in a resolution, we sort of resolve that we recommend that the responsibility of reviewing and updating that handbook be assigned to the rules committee, and that we have an update to that handbook a minimum of once a year. And then that I threw this one in, but I thought it made sense. Maybe it's not. We can discuss it. To make sure that that handbook is provided to members or available to members at least X number of days prior to the regularly scheduled town meeting, to make sure that if there are changes, anyone who's going to be involved in the town meeting is aware of those changes ahead of it. Obviously, you don't want rules to change the day before you show.
One important point is we can't refer that to them. We can ask nicely.
What do you mean by that?
We have no authority to give the rules committee work.
Oh, yeah.
We can ask nicely.
This whole thing is a recommendation. I think everything we do is ultimately a document, a report, and recommendation that actually just goes, I believe, to the select board.
Right.
And so that's it. They could say, we're not doing anything. Say, we recommend that we bring this to town meeting. Or they could say, here's these recommendations, we'll take it from here and go. So I agree with you. We do not have any authority that I'm aware of to enact anything. So now the question is, do we think this is the right language, the right wording, et cetera?
I was just gonna ask if we can have until the next meeting to all review it. That's fine. But I think that in general, I like the structure of it, and I think that it can be a good blueprint for other recommendations.
I agree. I actually like it very much. I think your point that our recommendations are indeed just that, recommendations until they're adopted. And obviously, this is something that if we're going to recommend the rules committee take it on, have somebody on the rules committee, our committee, and just an alternate, you're on it still. So, we can maybe, ask Myrna to kind of talk to the chair of the rules committee and see how they respond, get some feedback to this. This is a proposal, I think, to float it by the chair just to see if this is something that, it's going to be acceptable. They agree, they don't agree. So we know what we're getting into. Might be a good way to keep this thing moving forward.
It did also occur to me as I was looking things over that, a town clerk has put in the effort to maintain this book. And I thought, is that something where there's a voice or there's some element of the town clerk that's in that they want to have a part in this or not? I don't know. We thought the rules committee made sense from a structural standpoint. There's no reason that the rules committee or someone else couldn't ask for help or invite someone to participate or things like that. But it was certainly more from the standpoint of, we recognized that this book was important, wanted to make sure that it had more formal home so that it would be updated and be maintained as a legacy to support the function of town meeting.
Pat, I have a question. Isn't in our current bylaws somewhere, doesn't it have the rules committee as being responsible for the handbook? Isn't that part of what brought this up at the beginning? No? Well, I know they're not doing it. but I
Responsible for the
believe-
rule, for, maintain the rules.
The handbook was written by Chief Vindication of the meeting.
Yeah, there was just something wonky in the bylaws about this that I remembered that.
Yeah, it does say, essentially review matters and make recommendations relating to. There's no requirement. It's, 2.5. There's no requirement that they maintain this.
Okay. I just thought I saw something from the rules about the handbook someplace and I probably. It's a sad comment. Right. So.
The introduction to the town handbook itself actually has some references to its creation. Right, so I remember the individual. See, I kind of like the fact that it had sort of a lineage and it was maintained. I thought that was kind of a nice touch.
What year was it published?
I think the last one, hold on.
I didn't know, the first time I saw it was, I think, last year when, Bill, you were handing it out at one of your briefing sessions. Yeah, and that was the first time I'd seen it. Been on town meeting at that point.
It says, prepared by Jennifer Priest, Town Clerk, second edition, Amy Warfield, first edition, Jane L. Chu, September 1995, revised through January 2013. So if we assume that that is accurate, then the last time this was updated, line item was 2013.
But Jen's name is on it, and she's only been 10.
Yeah, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, let's see if we can find the date.
Anyhow, it's 1995, it sounds like, was the first.
30 years.
Something was done back in 72, 73. I don't know whatever happened to.
It originated a suggestion by.
This version J2 put together, Amy updated it, and wrote and added to it in 2013. Jennifer has not changed anything there. And the procedures have not changed significantly in the last 10 years.
It does say in the text of the book here that it was originated by a suggestion of Burlington's former conservation administrator, Brian Monahan, who recognized that new town meeting members would benefit from God explaining how it operates. First edition created by former town clerk Jane L. Chu has been updated over the years, most recently under the tenure of town clerk Amy. I think it may be out of date.
In all of the handbook, we did have a list of rules back. 72. Just to remember.
Okay, so, first, thanks, Russ, for doing this. I think it's giving us a good start. I think everybody should take a look at this. Be prepared to come back the next meeting with recommendations on either changes, modifications, and then we should be prepared to vote about whether this goes in the pile of recommendations. Keep in mind, before we finally decide on any of this stuff, we're going to go back and revisit some of these things just to make sure that something hasn't come up in the meantime that would change our mind. But I think we need to start checking these off. This is a great start on something that was on our list of things we needed to take care of. So next meeting, everybody review it and get their comments ready for, discussion. Maybe, send Russ any comments or questions so that we can be efficient in our meeting.
You said that, you're saying, people send comments and questions to me.
Sorry, organize a little, what's everything went through you, that's it.
Well, I don't know if it makes sense to go through me and then I send it to Russ. I mean, I'm all for being efficient if Russ is willing to,
Yeah, I can organize the information.
yeah, I mean, and you may get nothing, but you may have somebody say there's a typo on page 2, at which point you just take care of the typo, right?
Yeah.
So, if there's any feedback, get it to Russ before the next meeting. And so that when we go in, we can have that and only to Russ, we can't do it to the whole committee.
As a point of process, it was what I think I saw in the draft Burlington document where this is the text that exists.
Yeah.
This text will come with me to the next meeting. Any comments will be indicated in red with maybe a
Yes.
potential change.
Yeah.
So that I don't actually change anything, I just
Yes,
note what might change.
Yeah.
And then we talk about those elements.
yes, perfect. Okay, you willing to do it? Sure. Awesome. Any other comments on this one? Ready to move on?
I just have one quick question for Pat, because I think you've been through this before. Is this in line with what you've seen?
On this type of recommendation?
Yes. Or just even the format of the recommendation? Is there anything you would change? Is there anything we're doing wrong that we should be capturing in this conversation?
No, I think this is an excellent way of documenting your decision-making process. When you write your final report, you may not choose to improve communication. You might make sure.
Okay.
But this is a great way of walking through what your reasoning is. So,
Right. So, yeah, I would envision we'd have a list with backup.
Right. This is an
So-
appendix item or something.
Yeah, it would be just the, 10 words that would explain what this is and then refer to whatever. The only thing I would add is a date. So we know when we do this.
Is this available as a Word document in town website? Is that
The town website does not have anything as yet, although given that I submitted.
I sent this
to
out.
the.
I believe I sent this
You
out
did.
to everybody.
Yeah,
on the-
it was part of the, information for this meeting. So therefore it will be part of what is.
the 6th?
Everybody has a copy of it now in their email, so I sent it out to everybody. So take a look again, mark it up. And if you have no comments, then don't send us anything. If you have comments, send them your comments. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Now we're, Pat, and I believe you want PowerPoint, right?
I do start off. That.
There. And
Okay, we are going to, do some of got through most of this, to be honest, but I want to talk briefly before we get into the charter language. In general, the standing committees aren't included in a charter. There may be a couple included. Finance committee is sometimes included, but
can I
in
ask you to talk louder?
sure.
Thank you.
So, in general, often the finance committee is included in the charter because they have such an essential role later on in the budget. Sometimes the capital, depending on the capital, here you call it the capital budget committee is included, sometimes not. Most of the others are not generally included in the charter and are included in bylaws. That way they can be very flexible about numbers. Say, for example, you're finding you can't get enough members and you choose to make it a smaller number. That doesn't require a charter change. So there's a lot more flexibility for the standing committees. That will probably remain in the bylaws. That being said, I just wanted to go through these so that you had identified a couple of issues. I thought we could talk through them at this point. So you can talk about whether you want to make a recommendation for a bylaw change. And that's going to be, you know, a little bit secondary to the charter work that we're going to be doing later in the evening. So, but I wanted to take a minute now to go through these in a little bit more detail. What you're called the Ways and Mean Committee, 15 voters, small, but great. The majority must be town meeting
Can you
members.
share? You're not sharing. I can't see.
Okay,
Oh, you can't see this? That's
okay,
up
hold
the
on.
screen?
If you can take a seat, yeah. Thanks, Jess.
Did he give you sharing?
No, there's an issue right now. I need to just minimize this. It should have shared. Hold on. Are you seeing anything yet?
No.
If you look on the bottom of the WebEx, does it say shoot?
Yeah, it's,
Doesn't look like it's sharing.
That
yet,
little
but
arrow.
it's in the-
See that little arrow? Should share.
where,
It's in the WebEx
The
window.
WebEx window in the black window. Do you see up on the screen?
There we go. Okay.
thank you, sorry. You know.
Okay, so, the Ways and Means Committee, 15 voters, most of it must be town meeting members, no town officers or employees. It's a 3-year term. I have a little comp information on this, but I wanted to check in just in general, whether you have any opinion as to the size, the terms. This is all fairly standard. The appointment by the moderator, I do have a little information. Most are appointed by the moderator. There are some others that are appointed by kind of teams of the moderator, select board chair, and the chair of the committee. So I wanted to do a check-in and find out if you have any information that, you know, that would make you want to deviate from what is happening right now, with respect to Ways and Means.
Bill, how are you finding this, you know, getting people to join that? I mean, that's a pretty important and intensive committee.
It is, I mean, it takes some effort. You have to look around and, yeah, put names on, fill out.
Precinct has to be represented. Oh, this one.
No, there are some,
You can't have more than so many people, but that's a battle.
And that there's no requirements on land use and CBRC and rules and everything. It's requirements on, not on Ways and Means. What the Ways and Means is required by the state law, it seems to me. So I would think this one goes into the charter, but I mean, the things like the number of people on it, I'll put that in the bylaw, if we want to change it sometime. So I would do that.
Have we ever changed it?
No,
Is there any?
we there's been some bantering back and forth and some changes like this. Not that I see anything that's going anywhere, but there's been some chatter on how to change some of our approaches to dealing with just the language. Yes, I would put the details of the charter just in case town meeting decides to change them.
Sort of speaking to that point, I have thought about this from the standpoint of, given the fact that probably in our interest to retain as much of our own authority within the town as we can, obviously anything that statute and state requires needs to come from the state, and we have to conform to that. When those are things that certainly all end up needing to be in the charter. Anything we do to the charter must itself, now or in the future, needs to go through the state legislature. So it feels like it would be in our interest to retain as much as possible in bylaw so that town meeting effectively is the body that has control over things like that. So this is an example where, okay, number of members, maybe it's never changed, maybe it never will, but if that doesn't have to be explicitly accounted for in the charter, and there's some way to let it be defined in the bylaw, that seems like a wiser course where then town has a little more autonomy to make that change if they want to sometime in the future.
I agree.
I think so too. And if it's state law, does it even need to be in the charter at all?
It does because, well, first of all, right now, the special act contains the language that the town moderator appoints the Ways and Means Committee. And so, we included that in because
And they already have it.
they already have it. But there are very different, the number of people on finance committees varies, the appointment varies. Some have special roles, like you said, there must be so many from each precinct. So that information can be contained in the bylaw or partially. We'll show you what we put in there when we show you the sample.
So we could potentially say that Ways and Means, majority must be town meeting members, no officers or employees, 3-year terms. And the number is determined by bylaw, or however you refer to people to the bylaw. We could do that, and that way we keep our flexibility. We already have this stuff. Is the 15 in the special act?
I'll have to take a peek, but I think it doesn't say on the special act.
It's in our bylaws, but I think the bylaws are straight up.
A lot of the bylaw does. Let me just see.
I think we could try to get a number based on the budget, how many members we need to be. People in different departments. You have too few. Too much.
And I don't remember such discussion, but it may have happened at one point in time. Oh, yeah. But,
So I like the kind of overall theme, of like what Russ is saying, is that having flexibility in a sense to have it in bylaw, and then have the charter do the stuff that we are okay with not having control of changing.
My concern about the Ways and Means, and it applies to other committees, is how are vacancies communicated?
but the moderator,
Well, it's not publicly announced in communication. So what about other towns?
Other towns have various ways of doing it. Most of them are internal procedures, not necessarily codified. But they'll put the open positions on the website. Usually, they'll, some of them have committees that they go to get extra help gathering members. But it's varied, and most of the assistance in finding members comes down to a policy decision or an internal procedure rather than codified.
You know, every September, every May, I ask people to let me know what committees they would be interested in being. The last May, I had 2 responses.
Well,
That is right, yeah. So people have an opportunity to tell me if they're interested in committees.
so,
Sorry. Or at least to the food, water, and farming. And so, I mean, I put the word, there's an opening. I asked different committees, you know, see if there's somebody in there. To be honest, I weigh heavily on the way the needs. So we have an opening, 14 people spread around town, that covers a lot of ground.
So could I recommend that this is something that we can talk about in the parking lot as a recommendation, perhaps, for communications plan? For communicating vacancies in a more codified way, so that we're not, you don't have to be the only person that's communicating this. If the town can actually take on some of that communication and just spread it. Or whatever, whoever. Does that sound good, folks? Yeah, I mean, I just think I've seen that run for town meeting. People just, when they let know, people get involved, so.
I'd like to see people respond.
Right.
So I asked, you know,
Forget
once is overwhelming.
Especially because a committee like this doesn't have to be town meeting members, right? So you know, when you post it at town meeting, it's great, but if you're not a town meeting member, you may not know about it. So, and I think that's great, and we will definitely put that in the parking lot. Make it so, thank you. And,
Coming back to this, you know, what you've got here on the screen, is the term also the kind of thing that is defined in charter or defined in bylaw?
It's often defined in the charter just for this committee.
Gotcha.
It's,
like the moderator, because we're finding.
right, the moderator's an elected position, so that needed to be done, but it's often defined in here. And it's often for years, because that's generally the term for town meeting members. So that's, I can tell you, Milton, of all the groups that we've, of the 6 groups that we've chosen as comparables, Milton has 1 year, the rest all have 3.
I'm just trying to sort of get a flavor for what are the things that are statutorily we have to clarify in a charter versus what are the things that it is wise for us to set some boundaries and limits on a charter versus we can leave it to bylaw, or even we can leave it to vagaries of the people at the time to make a decision about what they want to do. I'm sort of thinking of things in that hierarchy of definition. And so for this, for example, there are a minimum number of voters that we do want to make sure are always represented on the committee. So something like when we're defining things like a quantity and a term and the requirements for those things, I'm trying to think about them in terms of, okay, what is the kind of thing we want never to be violated? That's what belongs in a charter. So maybe a minimum of 15 members is appropriate, or something. A minimum number of members of some number. I'm not proposing. I'm just simply poking at the edges of how we go about thinking through these kind of things. I'm also thinking of due respect. You are the moderator now. Tomorrow there could be another moderator. 100 years from now, another moderator.
Years from now, they will.
Probably, but you never know.
99, maybe not.
And so I'm trying to think also of, how to make things that are flexible and forward-looking for whatever the situation is.
Be careful when you say a minimum of 15 because someone resigns. Does that mean the body can't function? It's only 14?
I'm not actually proposing a minimum of 15. I'm thinking just, are there elements around the number of members where, for the Ways and Means Committee, very important committee, is there something about that that we want to make sure is not ever violated? That kind of a thing.
I guess my recommendation based on my limited knowledge stuff, I think the term to me makes good sense, 3 years. It goes along with the term of town meeting members. It's also, this is a committee where it's very specialized knowledge and people get better the longer they're on it. And so 1 year makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I feel very comfortable putting 3-year terms in a charter because that means 1 term, and if somebody goes for another term, they're in for another 3 years. And we're going to get some continuity, but you do get some turnover periodically. The number of voters, I mean, of members of the committee, I think that should be in the bylaw. That's a place where we probably do want the flexibility. So I guess as I look at this, the charter, I would do the 3 years, bylaw 15, and the rest I'd leave in the charter.
Majority of town meetings want charter.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I can tell you just FYI that even though these talk about what's in the bylaw, there is in your special act a provision for all of the standing committees that they have to be mostly town meeting members. So that's an overriding decision that's been made, and we've incorporated that decision into the charter. So this is what it states in the bylaw, but I was going to say that each of these committees has to have a majority of town meeting members. So it's a choice that was made by special act. So unless you see a reason not to continue that choice, we put it into the charter. And as far what's in the charter and what's not, we'll have an opportunity to talk about it when we get to the charter language for this committee. The rest of the committees aren't in the standard charter language. So the rest of them we're running through whether you think that everything in the bylaw, and whether there's any red flags you want to put in the parking lot. Or the other.
Is capital budget, is that another one that we should be thinking of putting in?
It's one that is often put in the committee, but I mean, in the charter, but to be honest, finance committee is usually the only one stated in charters. And capital is kind of a newer approach to put the capital committee in the charter. So I would say that could go either way, but you may just not want to because you don't want to, you're not necessarily ranking all the other committees as to what's important enough to go into a charter and what isn't. It could be put in the charter, and many do, simply because of its role in the budgeting process. But doesn't have to be.
In our comparator group, what do we see?
I would say most of them don't have it in our group. But these are charters of all different ages. Most of them don't have it. Most of them do have some reference to what I'm calling the finance committee. It's the Ways and Means Committee, but under state law, the finance committee, state laws apply to it. Most of them do have mention of a finance committee of some. Yours is called Ways and Means. One other of our comparables called Finance and Warrant.
Capital budget.
Oh, capital budget. Yeah, that generally has not been in the charter.
Okay.
And it's defined elsewhere.
Okay.
Given what capital budget does, it's 7 people looking for majority of town meeting members, which means 4. Is there not some benefit in capital budget to have some people who are necessarily part of town meeting, but who deal with capital items in town?
Well,
Yes, that's why we have some flexibility. And I look for people outside of town meeting. The expertise.
So if it's it's a 7-member committee, is 3 enough for you to look outside that meeting?
Okay, so capital budget not in charter, ways and means in charter, is what you're saying.
Right. Um, bylaw review, this is, 7 voters, for 3-year terms. Not sure if, I think that you all have a pretty good understanding of what the bylaw review does.
This is general, there are 2 different committees, which you don't recognize here.
And,
There's the general bylaw review and zoning. So the zoning bylaw review is a separate committee
okay, and is that appointed by town meeting? I mean,
by moderator.
by the moderator.
Oh, except for, there's one representative that's, from the select board. The business representative is,
Oh, the general bylaw.
and that's the CBA representative.
And
So that's not why they're not under the town moderator appointed.
It is.
bylaw.
It is, but
It's not under that provision.
I don't know.
The general bylaw committee is the one that I'm referencing.
yeah, federal bylaw review committee, 7 people, 3 years.
So there's,
In the zoning bylaw, maybe that's that. Okay, so the zoning bylaw is 2.8 and they have their responsibility in here as well.
and it wasn't in your, just add that. And I think we have 9 voting members, 11 members on the CBRC. So
Yeah, there are 7 town meetings. One for each.
Yeah.
One for each.
The bylaw says that there are a total of 11 members, 9 voting members, 2 non-voting members.
Right.
Voting is 1 representative from the Board of Appeals, 1 representative from the business community, and the balance as representatives of the precincts. And a majority must be town meeting members.
we're majority of town meeting.
So it won't be in the charter, but, and we'll make sure that, I guess at this point, what I'm just trying to understand from you, if if you've singled any issues that you further discussion or recommendations with bylaws. So the bylaw review, 7 voters, 3 years, has that been a good number and work out for you?
Works.
Okay, I think we were the town facilities, 7 members, 1 from each precinct for 2 years.
It exists.
They're invisible.
And do we need it? I mean, that's what I would assume the capital budget is the group that should be doing this.
On capital budget, we don't.
I know, there's no time. Oh, that's a caring capacity.
So let me just talk to John DeMizio about this. Probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there was a town facilities study. Put together a report that organized our priorities, things like sports field, for council on aging, police station, second fire station, all those things that we've more or less done. I think that probably needs to be redone. But I'm not sure how it would work with this committee. So I would leave it there to be in the bylaws for now, because it's something that is under discussion.
And if,
We're
anyone,
gonna wanna come back and make recommendations, this group, on what that is all about. So we should put this in the parking lot. We need to Bill, I'm gonna put you as the one who's gonna chase it down.
I think he might already be.
This is going to be on our warrant. This is what the article of modification is, because it talks about construction.
Monty just wants a report.
Yes, I know, but that's what it started. And nevertheless, so this is for the committee. And for the meeting, there's a lot about.
So we need to come back to that one.
Back to that one.
And Bill, how long do you think you need? Like, pin you down, like when you want to get back to the committee?
It's gonna be a while, because it's chatting with Lizzie Owens and so forth. Trying to get them to do some.
November, December, November it is.
Okay, the next is the Rules Committee. There's 13 members, at least one from each precinct. Am I correct that they can be any members of that precinct? Some have the Rules Committee be the precinct chairs. You don't elect precinct chairs. Do you have precinct meetings immediately before town meeting?
No.
So, and that's why you have the provision if there's a vacancy that they have to call a meeting of the precinct.
Correct.
Etc. You don't have a regular precinct. Some towns, not saying you have to do this, if it's not in your tradition. Many towns have precinct chairs. Each precinct meets immediately, a half an hour before town meeting starts, elects a chair, fills any vacancies, and those precinct chairs then meet as the rules committee. But you just select a person from each precinct. So we talked about, for the rules committee, there's a few items that they are responsible for. That is they review and make recommendations on the conduct of town meeting. So that is, for example, weigh in on any potential town meeting rules. And it's talked about perhaps assigning them to keep track of these rules in the handbook might be a worthwhile goal. The second is serves as the steering authority for review of warrant articles. I'm not sure if that is an appropriate one to continue, mainly because the select board is the one charged with determining the warrant. And if something has to be on the warrant, it has to be on the warrant. There's no steering it to, unless they are directing what committees it goes to before the warrant.
My understanding is that that is not on their list of to-dos. There may be warrant articles relative to how meeting operates that would go to the rules committee for discussion. Like when I was doing the attendance thing, I went to rules committee because it was about that. But when I went from town signage, I never went to rules committee. It didn't have anything to do with it. So I don't think that happens at all. I think we should just strike that.
So they're not saying this has to go to that committee, this has to go to that.
No, when you open up your warrant that you just got in the mail, very first article says the president of the rules committee that looked at the warrant. That's what we did. Anyone got their warrant?
I don't have it, but I don't.
And there are not 13 members. The rules committee for several years.
They're one short.
13? It seems like 12.
I was gonna ask if 13 is a reasonable number. I mean, we haven't talked about these other things, but 13 seems like a lot.
It's a lot of people. I agree. I think it's,
A lot of people for 1 year.
that is,
By 1 year.
Maybe because town meeting cycles, not everybody, but in theory, every year, there's turnover.
well, I would,
That's my theory.
I would throw out, why don't we make it 3 years like these other ones? Kind of make that a standard so that when people get into, kind of get into the, into the flow of it, that, they know what they're doing. And I agree with Nikki, 13 is too many. I just think it's too many.
13.
Well, getting people to show up is one issue. I mean, appointing them is one thing. Getting them to say that they're concerned, whether they show up or not.
What is a standard number?
A standard number is often, and I was gonna say, you may want, if you change it, it would be reasonable to change it to one precinct. 7. However, if, 13 is kind of an odd number to pick, I'm not sure where it came from. Unless it is, there were 6 precincts and it was probably 6 times 2 from each precinct and 1 tiebreaker or something. Because it needs to be an odd number.
I think we're reaching to, it's just 13.
Okay, so,
Sure.
so, you may want to put together some recommendations on this.
Well, we're talking about it.
Right.
So if we're going to make a recommendation, let's talk about it, and we can put it on I want to capture this as a bylaw recommendation, not, so that as we go through this, we have a list of bylaw recommendations we want to make, not let's come back at it, right?
We're talking about it now.
Right. So
Absolutely.
So if we think it needs to change, and we think the term needs to change, that's kind of let's talk about that for a moment. Do people agree?
I think the term should be 3 years. I don't see, I think 1 year is.
So if this committee is composed of a majority of town meeting members, because all these standing committees are,
Yep.
then the majority of members might turn over. It might be a chance they turn over on the year. Right? Like you don't know that they'll last 3 years. Right? Is that true? That could be true for anything.
Right.
This is actually,
I can talk myself.
I just want to interrupt. There should be 13 town meeting members. So this is the exception to that rule. This is by members, it's town meeting members. So, this would be, everyone on there has to be a town meeting member because everyone on there is making rules respecting town meeting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to have them be town meeting members.
And I think
And that's,
One per precinct, I think it's a good way to do it.
What do we do if someday in the future there's an even number of precincts?
Well, this is a bylaw. Say 1 per precinct.
There,
you can have the town moderator be a tiebreaker because they're,
roll that. He only has to show, or the person who is the moderator would only have to weigh in, would have to appoint someone until such time that they.
If we get to precinct number 8, we'll have to make some bylaw changes, and I would imagine. So we can increase the number to 9 instead of 7. So it's odd.
Right. Right.
So I think the proposal that's on the floor at the moment is the rules committee that we would, we still haven't filled the roles and responsibilities yet, but
The question was, maybe I just pay attention, which was, it doesn't say, are these just committees appointed by the town moderator and then has the.
that's all we're talking about.
Oh, it was less.
So as a member of the rules committee, do you think 7 is a good number for that committee? I mean, considering how many people you usually have at a meeting.
Attendance is pretty good.
Uh,
No, I would say yeah.
7 is a good
Yeah.
number.
That mean you have to appoint somebody?
Well,
It'll be a while.
So-
You could make it Richard.
Right,
it's
right.
only a year.
Oh, no, yes.
That was only a year, right? And whenever this kicks in, then we just
Right.
appoint
So
them.
there's a transition, yeah, Russ.
Maybe getting meta again, but if you make it 1 per precinct.
Yeah.
Who's the odd number now? How many precincts are there?
7.
7. Okay, so it works. When there's 8, you make changes to make it 9. When you make it 9, it's the odd number in the sense that if you have a second person from a precinct, maybe you have every precinct lined up along arguing lines over something.
Well, In my years in town meeting, I have never seen, I mean, very, very few precinct oriented.
Gotcha.
No.
Okay, we'll trust to the
Okay.
future.
So let's, I guess, deal with the number, because I think we can get there on this, that well, I think what we're proposing is that we are going to recommend 3-year term, 1 per precinct.
Yeah.
Right?
So is there ever a problem saying precinct X just can't get anybody? So would you want to have the option of 22 from another precinct? Because precinct X just, that's nobody.
Use language like we have for land use. Like you try to get 1 from each precinct if possible, but no more than 2 from any one precinct.
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so can we have a motion? Thank you. A motion?
I second the motion.
3 years, and 1 from each precinct, if possible, but no more than 2 from any one precinct. That's what we're talking. Okay.
I'll second that.
Let's go to Jack.
Yes.
Do we have,
Yeah. Corey?
Yes.
Nikki?
yes,
Bill? Steve?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
Jess?
Yep.
Right, that's, everybody. Okay, now, let's go back to what the committee does. The steering authority for warrant articles,
You gonna do a vote on the term?
I just did.
yeah, that was,
You didn't say that in there. I thought that was just about the members.
It's a 3-year term and,
Got it. Got it.
okay. So sorry if that was not clear. 3-year. term.
I think that was just me.
Okay. The 2 that, I think are questionable in terms of whether they do anything on these are the steering authority and assist the moderator in selecting appointments for committees. I don't believe that rules committee does either of those 2 things. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. Select board office directs the warrant articles to committees. But also the responsibility for the committees to check in and make sure.
But this committee does not work with you to find land use members or ways and means.
No.
No. So they don't do it. Is there any reason we think they should do it? Or should we propose that we change the bylaw, which is where you got this, right?
correct.
If you're going, at some point, we're going to discuss codify how we go about appointing and finding people. Then I would take that and stick that in or we call it not the wastebasket. Copy to include in the discussion on how select people for it.
Well, right now we're saying moderator.
I know. But we had earlier tonight, we said we look at how the moderator goes about getting.
for the communication plan. Yeah, you're right. So that could be roped into that same kind of idea.
Okay, but, okay, I guess I'm trying to see if we have consensus that it comes off the rules.
Right now, yes.
So that we are gonna, at the moment, propose that we're gonna amend the duties to, eliminate the, steering authority and, assisting the moderator on appointments.
I mean, I have the same question that you had, Betsy, which like, great, it's working now, everything is going the way it goes, but is there a reason that we should have another checkpoint in the appointment of any moderator appointed committees? Like, is there a rationale behind that? What do other towns do? What's the average thing that folks are doing? And is there a reason to change that?
I would say that in some committees where it's the precinct chair and they have regular precinct chair meetings with the moderator on rules and other things, that would be maybe a situation where the moderator would have an opportunity to talk to precinct chairs and say, is there anyone from your from your precinct that you're interested in that? This is not quite the same thing because this person isn't representing the whole precinct necessarily, they're a member. But where, to be honest, where their appointments are solely rest with the moderator, it's often an internal communications plan rather than any formal role. Some council manager towns, which are not, have some resident advisory committees, et cetera. And some have, open town meeting. I can think of another open town meeting that has a resident advisory board to help select this, but it would be a separate committee or a separate group that might be assigned. It's not generally.
But that's not the representative town.
Right. And it's not generally one of the state.
From speaking with other moderators, there's a variety of ways that things are people are. Some moderator does it in conjunction with some member of the select.
Some there are 3-person teams. It would be the select board chair, the moderator, and the chair of whatever committee you are working with. Some it's solely the town moderator's responsibility, but they usually check in with those other. And some, and there's usually some at least procedural and communications coordination with the select board's office for posting vacancies and trying to work through. A couple have, resident boards that they have a separate, appointed resident board that helps propose, takes resumes.
Sure.
I was shocked when I heard this person. Even though it really good suggestion, I don't think the other members of the group are even aware that this is what's written to vote forward.
This is not bylaw, not in the handbook.
All right, wherever it is, so that, I would just say, walk a little gently. I think that committee should be informed about all this and, be aware of what changes this week.
Well, I guess what I would encourage you to do as a member of the rules committee and also, being here, is I think if you could be our liaison to that committee and talk to them about the fact that the current bylaws says that these are the functions of that committee.
But I did, when I started it, I did send an email to the chair saying this was, what we're supposed to be doing. And I got a response. I don't think I have it. More or less, the answer is that I really what we're supposed to be doing. I'm just saying, as a member, that we have to follow.
I'm wondering if the committee was created, assigned to the moderator to appoint. Ultimately, we should ask, what is the purpose of that committee? What is its primary function? My interpretation was that its primary function was to essentially oversee the rules and the conduct of town meeting.
Yeah.
It was there to be, you can imagine, I'm not there, I've never been to a meeting, I have no idea, but I imagine it would be the kind of thing where procedures need to be invented or followed, or the town meeting is running poorly and we need to figure out a way to make it better, or we want to make sure that someone's violated rules and we need to arbitrate a dispute. that feels like the place where that things like that happens at. Fair, accurate, correct, wrong?
Doesn't sound familiar to me.
No, and I was gonna say, one thing I did when I was chair, was on the last meeting, the after town meeting. But when we can always make something better. That's
Yeah.
So I think maybe as an action, why don't I, maybe I talk to Adam and decide.
Yes.
Yes, okay, I don't want to trample into it.
No.
Okay, so why don't I take the action, talking to Adam, and I'm gonna review what the bylaws have now and tell him that it appears that that's not happening. So if we're gonna have the bylaws, and it makes sense to take this out of them, unless they feel strongly that that's a role that they want to play. And at which point then they need to talk to you, Bill. I don't know if it would be helpful to the moderator to have more people providing input or whether or not, but we could at least start with the rules committee and see if if they agree that that's really not part of their gig.
Structurally, in my mind, it also makes sense that a rules committee would exist as part of the legislative body, to help create its own guidance and rule, and maybe to act as a small check on the power of the moderator. That said, the moderator appoints them, so it's not a great check, but I could see it having some value there.
Okay, so why don't I take the action that I'll talk to the chair of the rules committee, and review what the bylaws say their I was going to say charter is, but that's probably not the word I really want to be using, but what their list of responsibilities, and this isn't the bylaw. This isn't the bylaw. And so we'll come back to that part about what we'll recommend in the bylaw, but at the moment, we know the term and the numbers. Okay.
Delays. Now, I understand your whole land use committee bylaws seem to be, were updated recently. So, I'm not sure that you'll have any additional changes. That, at least it's in red in the online, which indicates as of January, it was updated and going through into approval. 9 members, at least 1 from each precinct for 3 years. They might be appointed as liaisons to the planning board and ZBA, reviews and makes recommendations, reviews and discusses maps, etc. And it says that the article requires the planning board to make a recommendation. The bylaw requires planning board to notify land use committee of public hearing for land use zoning issues. It's fairly recently updated. So I'm imagining they took into account any changes that needed to be made. So I just wanted to check in with you and see if anyone was aware of any additional issues that this committee wanted to address.
I would like to make a suggestion that not all of the committee members need to be town meeting.
Okay,
9.
this one, for this one, it says the committee shall consist of 9 town meeting members.
Right.
So your suggestion is that not all need to be town meeting. And there can also, some of the issues, that there can be some overlap, right? Someone can be on town meeting and their, term is up and for the meeting, but not necessarily for this. So,
So we want to say like 9 members, the majority of which are town meeting members, kind of thing, Bill, or what are you thinking?
To me, that seems sufficient. The reason I bring this up is I have someone who would like to serve on this committee, but I can't put them, there's an opening that I can't fill with this person.
So the town meeting move, we put these people.
People will show up, people show interest, will come talk to you. I mean, people will refer to me. or meet with them. If I think it's appropriate. I look for opportunities to get non-town meeting people involved and stretch our numbers.
And I think that way, but they have to be residents, right?
Oh, yeah, they have to be voters and all that other stuff. Yeah.
How does that work?
To get public.
Like it just,
Yeah, it does. But I just keep people on the capital budget. Yeah, there's at least one.
yeah.
But anyway, I think it works well to get people involved. To be honest, it's an opportunity to get members of minority groups involved because they can't seem to win town meeting elections. Gentleman who's been on Ways and Means for 4 years now, he can't get himself elected to town meeting. So he grew up in town. His
You finally get it.
yeah, he did. His uncle was the DPW superintendent. Sure. Yeah, and he can't get elected in the town meeting.
Do we have any reason why we think people might have even recently made language that would make them?
I think that is from the previous language.
Okay, so you.
I think he said probably they didn't even think about it, but yeah, I think it was a kind of an administrative oversight. So I think for us to recommend an update to the land use bylaw, that if the 9 members, the majority of which are town meeting members.
I think that part can't change because that's a different. All standing committees. Section have to be a majority of town.
Right, so we would do it right now. This is all have to be town meeting members. So we would be proposing that change.
Is there any recommendation?
If the language is, all must be town meeting members.
Now, but we're gonna
Oh,
recommend,
okay, all right.
we're gonna recommend a change so that it goes to the majority. It also increases transparency. It's a whole lot of good things. Is why we want to do this.
Is there anything that requires all town meeting committees opposed of town residents?
Yes,
I think so.
they'll have to be residents. They'll have to be voters.
To be registered voters,
In
not
the-
as residents.
In the draft language that we haven't gotten to, that I'm pretty sure came to bylaw language, or if not bylaw language, then it was special act. It does say that the committee members have to be voters and well, I'm thinking of the town meeting member language, so maybe it doesn't apply.
I don't know that there is, I'll have to look, but
Yeah.
many, not so much for town meeting committees, but for the select board appointed, committee, many towns and cities are trying to move toward not having a voter requirement so that they can have a broader base of people who are residents, but not necessarily eligible to vote. But
Remember, the master plan committee had people who are not residents of the town.
yeah, unless it's, you know, like,
I think-
Committees that don't have residents of the
So is it written anywhere in our bylaws that in order to be on a town committee,
Standing.
The one's appointed by the moderator.
is there anything where we say that those people who are appointed have to be a resident?
I think they say voters, not
resident or
residents.
voter.
They say voters, well, the voters.
I would say we
not-
treat them as two separate things, that sometimes you want both and sometimes you want one. If you're a voter, you have to have been a resident.
Right, but the opposite.
But you might sometimes just want a resident who's, I don't know why.
I just want to know if it's handled in the wording.
Yeah.
I propose we put that on the list of issues to make sure that as a blanket language that goes with all committees that are standing, that that criteria is true. That makes sense?
No,
Yeah.
no, not to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So somewhere in the bylaws, we need to state that in order to be on a town meeting standing committee, that you have to be, I won't figure out the language, but a resident and or voter. And we have to figure out whether.
We have to figure out which, okay.
I don't believe it's a requirement right now. The requirement is just whether you're a town meeting member or not, or a majority of
Right.
town meeting member.
Requirement of being a town meeting member. I'm
Right.
hoping that could be a non-resident. The business community or something.
Well, I believe the individual bylaws have different, some of the bylaws say voters, some of the bylaws say town meeting members. I don't believe any of them specifically allow non-residents, but,
Which
they're
we-
all different, each.
I think- Yeah,
I think we want overall umbrella or something saying what it is we want, whether or not person appointed to a town meeting and the town meeting committee has to be resident.
I think,
Something. We need to make it clear.
I think we're all agreeing.
Moments
That's
left.
the thing we're putting up.
yeah, I think we need to do that and we'll discuss that. I think that's,
I think there are a couple of ones that may have staff on.
Is
Pat, if you
CBRC,
could,
CBRC is staff. They don't-
right, and so that would be let's see. So we'll, you know, for the standing committees, other than the staff member, does the committee have like consensus that they want them to be voters? The additional members to be voters or residents?
I think they should be residents.
and not voters.
Oh, not necessarily voters, but I don't think anyone outside the town should have the ability to mess with stuff in the town. That's,
So I will just push back a tiny bit and say, I agree, not necessarily voters, because there are plenty of people who are residents of town who eligible to vote because they have green card citizens. But also, I do think that a business owner that does business in Burlington, that owns a small business in Burlington or something like that, may be something that could be considered for certain committees. So.
I think this is a discussion.
Yeah.
That we're putting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I think there's arguments that be made all over the place on this one. And it is gonna hit so many hot buttons for so many people. We're gonna have to be very thoughtful about how we move forward with that. And so it's going into the,
And right now, it's in the individual bylaws.
and now,
So, which bylaw now?
when you say individual, it's now defined in the bylaw for each committee.
Correct.
Okay.
So winding it all the way back after that's been noted, I think your point was great, Jack, that it used to say the members of this committee were town meeting members. By definition, elsewhere, town meeting member is a resident and a voter. So if we are opting to change this committee, I don't know whether we're trying to change the members of this committee to be not town members or not town meeting members. If that is the case, then we can either continue to discuss whether this committee in particular should or should not have residents and or voters. Or we can leave that part to be a blanket thing to discuss.
We can do it.
I think that's what we're gonna,
Umbrella statement, or we can do it committee by committee.
I think at the moment, we're gonna leave everything as it is because it's in the bylaw. But we're gonna come back and talk about, when we have wording to the extent that the majority of which must be town meeting members. We are, and a lot of the stuff we're talking about, we're opening it up that way. How are we gonna define what the non-majority component is filled with? And is it gonna be done by committee? Is it gonna, and that is, like, are we talking residents? Are we talking voters? Are we talking residents and voters? And in certain committees, do we want a representation from the business? But at the moment, we identify people in the committee by, like CDRC, a representative of the building committee, I mean, of the commercial community, as well as the number of town meeting members. So we identified it today in terms of the people who own a business here. They're identified separately. The other part of the seat, the part that I think that's up in the air is not when we have somebody representing the business owners, but it's when we say the majority of which are town meeting members. How are we going to define that other group?
So in not trying to go deeper into that parking lot item, this committee, are we proceeding to try to consider making them not town meeting members? Because that's challenging with what we're opening things up to if we remove that restriction without knowing that we've made a blanket.
Well, that's how all the other committees operate. Ways and Means doesn't have to have a.
I'm only thinking only of the ones we've looked at so far. This is the first time we've had a committee, I think, that said to all town meeting members where we were saying.
This is the only one, I believe. Lawyers, only town meeting.
I think the bylaw, the rules committee is not to be a town meeting.
Oh, yeah, separate one.
Sure.
That one makes sense.
Yeah.
But of all the other standing committees, Ways and Means, Capital Budget, Human Services, they all are majority town meeting.
Then I would move that we change the land use committee to be 9 members who are residents. I don't know about the umbrella thing, that'll be a later discussion, but I care very much that the land use be residents.
Well, I guess.
With the worms, we're not trying to.
No. I think that you're getting, basically the discussion is, we say the majority of which are town meeting members, okay, for this committee. Then we need to decide when we are saying that, which we're saying for many of our committees, what is the non-majority part composed of? And that's the parking lot.
I didn't say even that the majority of this was town meeting members. I didn't necessarily, not promoting or not promoting it, I just didn't know that wasn't, by making it not all, that's not the same as making it a majority. And also the language about the majority of town meeting members sort of exists as blanket language over all of them anyway. So by definition, if we only change the language around saying all town meeting members, all we're doing is saying it's still going to be a majority town meeting because the other rule is intact. And now we're just saying some of them will not be town meeting members.
I guess,
Sorry.
I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think right now it says 9 town meeting members. That is not consistent with a number of the other standing committees that we have, aside from the rules, which is different, because that's regularly part of meeting itself. To get the language more consistent, remember, part of what we're trying to do is make things easy. We make it the same kind of consistent. We're saying 9 members, the majority of which must be town meeting members. The open item that's in the parking lot is whenever we say that, which we're saying it now quite a few times in the bylaw, the non-majority, what does that mean? Are they residents? Are they voters? What are they? And we're saying we should probably define what that non-majority needs to be comprised of. And that is in the parking lot, so we're not going to talk about that now. What is on the table now is changing it from 9 town meeting members to 9 members, the majority of which is town meeting. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying? Okay, Russ.
Not to be all legally, but if we say leave the blanket language to be decided later, this committee could override that blanket language to be a committee that, just like the rules committee, has a special.
No, I mean, to decide later, like, it's in the parking lot, we're gonna decide and make a recommendation.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm saying, let's say in the future, we decided that we were fine with even non-residents being committee members in the blanket language to explain every other non-town meeting member of a committee. Boy, that's even hard to say. This committee, in particular, it feels makes explicit sense to be a resident. So even if we made it, that's a different argument. I'm just trying to make it clear that even if we decided later to allow non-residents to be members of committee, for whatever reason.
No,
I asked
the moderator will never appoint someone who's not a resident. Town meeting is for the town.
this moderator.
You wouldn't, but there could be another town meeting.
Okay, wait a minute. We're moving way into,
One quick
I think,
comment.
yeah,
A lot of the land in town is owned by people who don't live.
Good point.
They have plenty of opportunities to put their 2 cents in.
absolutely. But
They
the
don't have to vote at town meeting.
right, the town meeting is represented by people who are residents and voters of this town, pay their
Agreed.
taxes, who live here, who live. This landowners, obviously, pay taxes, but live here. And that's the way it is everywhere in every town in the state of Massachusetts and probably and beyond that. So we're not going to change that. That is a given, not changing. Done. What we are considering is that when we are saying in the committees where it says explicitly that everybody on the committee needs to be a town meeting member. This one, we think they don't need to be. We could open it up so that majority of town meeting, but then there's also flexibility to add non-town meeting members to it. Right? It would make some sense to define what that non-majority is defined by. And it would be probably residents, if not voters, one or the other,
I agree with everything you said there.
except.
And in this committee, if we said right now, I would motion that we would change this language to indicate it's 9 members.
Yeah.
That are residents. The fact that their town meeting majority is already covered by another rule, so I don't have to mention it here.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It-
We have not done this with any other committee.
No,
Okay.
I don't think
Committee
it's not covered with
can
this.
have members who are not town meeting members. We have not gone through this exercise of worrying about whether they're residents or voters.
But maybe we should have.
Well, and I think the point is that Betsy's desperately trying to make is that we can, but we should do it all at once at a different time.
Yes, I
And I guess we have a motion, we move on from this committee.
It
and
has
see
to
if
come up before because we never appointed someone who's resident.
well, that's,
And it's proper
it's
for
right.
them to be a member of the town meeting.
I would,
I agree. That's the point. If we think it's improper, that's the point of this.
That's why I raised
Make it explicit.
15 minutes ago,
Yeah.
banging it around.
right, I think, Russ, I think where we are is that, I'm going to try to make this again, that rather than saying 9 members that all need to be in town meeting, we want to loosen this one committee up in its definition to reflect what a number of other committees say in terms of what constitutes those committees. What a number of other committees say is they say so many members, the majority of which are town meeting members. It's just as simple as that in terms of what we change here. That is making the assumption that that minority is going to be filled by either a resident or a voter.
I understand that.
Right.
I don't want to make the assumption.
But you're saying,
I'm trying to,
Given the
Be
fact
clear
that we
and make-
talked about this for 20 minutes, Why put it in the parking lot? Let's settle it now.
It may need more.
I think yeah, and I think that we need to take all of those committees that are laid out by bylaws as one, because the blanket.
Yeah, I want you to, please jump in.
A little bit of, just one thought of how you can handle it, is that, you can either say overarching, you want all the study, we have a section that we're going to be talking about that says, and it's from your special act, it says the town meeting shall, by bylaw, provide for the establishment of standing committees, a majority of which members shall be composed of persons elected to town meeting. So you can either do two things. You can make a blanket statement there about what the rest, or you could decide that this is a matter that requires more, that you might recommend that each committee look into what makes the most sense for it, rather than making that recommendation for all committees. In case there is a committee that's, like the zoning, like specific zoning bylaw review committee, that says we want a business, you can leave it to them or recommend that each committee study what is best for its committee.
So maybe the language should be, unless otherwise specified, all members of any town meeting member must be residents of the town.
Right. You can put that language in there unless otherwise specified.
And then if we have a committee where we think somebody who's not a resident, that should be on it, specified for that.
There's only one of those, BBRC.
And we don't have one, so it doesn't.
When you have the building inspector, you've got someone from board staff or whatever, maybe the board's like.
They don't vote. They don't vote. Okay, so what we're saying is a blanket statement to pass. Wait a minute, let's, I think we're close to closing this. Let's hang in there with it, all right?
And we'll be talking about it, but in section 212, section 212.
In the charter language.
Saying, unless otherwise
Specified, all members of the town, the town meeting standing committees, right? That's what it says. Must be residents of the town. Are you okay with that?
Yes, because then when we ask this question, I can drop the restriction here.
Thank you. So in that language, then we can go back and recommend that this is 9 members, the majority of which are town meeting members. And everybody's happy. Okay,
So-
now that everybody's happy, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay,
All in favor, opposed, motion carries.
I have to do this, Jess?
Yep.
Okay, anybody else in the room? Oh, no. Jack,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Nikki?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Russ? Yes, okay. Okay, Deanna, okay, we got it.
What was your vote?
Yes. Sorry. Okay,
Here.
so the blanket statement, and you're taking care of that in the charter.
yes.
And the recommendation will be in the bylaw recommendation list.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. All right. Human Services Advisory Committee, 7 members, 3 years.
Excuse me, you didn't complete the whole.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to talk about the duties of the land use?
This was just
This was just
done
reviewed
in January.
in January by town meeting. So I prefaced it by the fact that it's just been reviewed. They've probably taken into account any changes they feel they need to make. It's not old language, it's new language. Human Services Advisory Committee, 7 members with 3-year terms. And their role is to consider human services programs and make recommendations to town meeting. They gather information on human services, promote coordinated action, maintains assessment of needs, and et cetera, gathers information on federal and state funding, develops list of funding priorities, and they report on matters referred to the committee by town meeting or others. So,
This doesn't say town meeting members.
it says, exactly what it says. 7 members appointed by the moderator.
Again, remembering that there's earlier language that the bylaw that says all standing committees are a majority.
Right, in the special act, there must be a majority of town meeting.
So we know there's 4.
And the rest of us will be residents. Okay.
So,
But it doesn't hurt, somebody's just reading part of it, to specify within the language of each one.
I think we should be
what the
consistent.
criteria is.
Should be consistent.
yeah, right now the bylaws are written at all different times and I kind of mimicked their language in here, but, you know, that it's the bylaws and they're drafted at different times. So, you know, it would be, if you want to make a recommendation that they make it consistent, that understanding, that's
I
fine.
think so, because if someone's
but-
reading just that,
Let's see your point.
they're taking it out, they may overread the language.
Right, they may just read that and not realize that,
Overread language.
So
Okay, I got that. So we're gonna make a recommendation that we have consistent wording in all committee makeup for all the standing committees. Yeah. Is this accurate, Bill? I don't know anything about this committee. I've never heard or seen anything from
Yeah, it's auction. It is.
it. Did they never report or do anything to?
They reported at the last town meeting, and I think Carl, maybe, next month.
False meeting.
They're compiling a list of human services needed services. in town.
They actually are.
Good.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
we talked about most of these. Let's see.
And I need one more person, so we know that.
Nancy. It's a little delayed. Try the down button.
See what happens.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
so there's the little.
All right. Okay, I want to talk a minute on referendum.
This isn't gonna be a minute chat.
Oh, well, one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I think I didn't ask to do that. Yeah, I did do I have a graphical research of what the percentages are from other towns. So town meeting article votes are not final for 14 days to allow a petition of 5% of voters. I can call that up in a minute,
Is it
but
5% of 200 people, whichever's less?
no, that's something else. Hold on. Yeah, we'll just share.
Are you trying to go to Word? Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up and tell you it, and then I'll, I think that graph up there. So here in Burlington, town meeting articles, votes are not final with some exceptions for 14 days, to allow 5% of voters to require an issue to be placed on the ballot. Exceptions are votes to adjourn, this can't reconvene to a meeting. A number of these new number ones are in line with what the state law requires for the budgeting process and when a budget has to be passed and is due by. So the financial ones are allowable, or votes passed by 2/3 majority can't be reviewed. Emergency measures, if it's been declared an emergency situation, like during COVID, et cetera. The budget of the town as a whole has to be passed by a certain date, so you don't have time to review it. Labor contract funds are pretty much, all of these are pretty much universal for those who have referendums. Now, the numbers is really where some things vary. For our comparable towns, they're all 5%. Well, most are 5%. In Reading, it's 3%. Walpole and Winchester, it's 4%, although Walpole has the requirement you have to at least have 50 voters from each precinct. And some say you only have 5 days to return your petition. Some say 7 days. Now, this isn't something that it's not exercised very often at all. So it's intended for an extreme miscalculation in vote to overturn town meeting. You have 2 branches of government, and the intent is not to gut the authority of town meeting. The intent is to correct some mistake that is made, a large mistake that is very much against what voters.
Can you give me an example?
You know, it's interesting. It's hard to give an example because this almost never happens. But let's say town meeting passes votes on, and it's not usually budget, but votes on a zoning article and approves the zoning article, and everyone in the town is they're not satisfied that their viewpoints were reflected in their precinct town meeting members. I think, to be honest, I think zoning is often kind of the hot spot of where something like this would come up. Let's say you had bicycle lanes on every let's give something that's often a hot spot, bicycle lanes on every road in Burlington, and which would be awesome as I'm a bicyclist, but it's definitely not something that is something that might be very controversial. If that is passed, then you need a significant number to overturn that. And because town meeting is really the legislative body of the town, you're not looking to have, every issue be taken out by a public vote. It would interfere with the normal running of the operation.
So were you saying, it sounded like what you said is that 14 days is on the long side.
On the long side, it gives people 2 weeks to come up with these signatures, when some towns, Milford, is 5 days. Milton, Reading,
Really giving
7
people a
days.
chance to speak.
Yeah. Winchester,
It's being more open.
it's
Yeah.
generous, it's more generous.
What about the 5%?
The 5%, even though in this group, there's a 3% and a 4%, 5% is very standard across all the members.
So that would be 900 signatures.
I think I did the math down here, 900 signatures. 5% would be 900. Yeah, that was pretty quick. And so there's about 18,000 voters currently. So 900 people would have to decide. And I don't think this is an unreasonable amount. And in certain towns, they may have some experience with this. I think the number are actually become more reasonable in the age of the internet, where these things are, put on Facebook and the group posts, come to this, come to my doorstep and sign this form. It's easier to get these numbers than it's been before. But some cities and towns have had, certain issues that they feel these numbers are not appropriate, because I don't think that you've had referendum petitions here, in at least not in recent history. You don't know if it's broken or not. If somebody has someone has pulled papers on a referendum and it's gotten just short, you might have some information otherwise. So this means, and I can repeat that, especially if you're listening from home. This means that a town meeting vote, other than those specific, mostly financial matters that we talked about, does not become effective for 14 days, which is on the long side, the generous side, to give people a time to file a petition if they want to have this voted on by a ballot. So it doesn't take 5% to reverse the vote. It takes 5% to require an election. And elections are expensive, right? So you don't want every matter to go to a vote. But there are some matters that they may, some people there may be a political will to have this decided by the full.
Would anybody get mad if I move to just accept the language as is?
I think that's a great idea. I
Second this.
I think it's good.
Okay, so moved.
Okay,
It does.
we have a second and we're ready to roll.
But if it gets a referendum and it's voted, 20% of the registered voters have to vote to change it.
And, and that's different. Most, yes, I would say almost all has that requirement of a minimum of 20%
Just
have
the
to vote.
majority of who shows up to vote.
So this is logistically impossible.
Well, I would say no.
Highest rate we've had in recent history is 22%.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay, so the issue for us to debate is not what happens once it gets to real,
Unless
but
that's part of the same bylaw, and Pat can answer that question.
I'm gonna see if it's in your special act. Most have a 20% threshold because what they don't want is 5%
Yeah.
of the voters overturning something that town meeting has done.
You could just make it awesome.
Well, right, like there's
for a free case
yeah.
where people are really upset.
Everyone's up with it.
They want change.
And it just feels like everybody that shows up has to vote one way in order.
well, and the other
No,
thing is,
it's in the the 20% is the threshold of
I
people
see,
to
I
show
see.
up.
Okay.
You have to have participation of 20%.
Got it.
now,
I
And
feel
then,
okay about that.
and then the majority wins.
Got it.
yeah,
but
I think, let's be clear, let's have one conversation here. It's 20% have to show up the day of voting. Right? What's it say?
Anyway, an action of the representative town meeting shall not be reversed unless 20% of the registered voters of the town shall vote to reverse the vote of the representative.
Let me see what you have. Oh, no, yours is yours is 20%. I mean, many of them are just the threshold. So
So-
20% have to show up.
Why?
But this says 20% of the voters have to vote to reverse the vote.
That's just unrealistic in Burlington, knowing our recent history.
I think my point is, this is not going to happen unless there's something that has got
The whole
the
town.
whole community upset. And I would hope if it's that thing, it's like.
Let's say 20%, 22% of the people turn out and 3% vote against it, but there's still 19% of people in favor. You understand what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, see, the truth is that if you're against it, you don't want to vote. You don't get any thresholds of.
I don't know. If I didn't want something overturned and I thought that my neighbors were going to vote to overturn it, I would show up at the.
So
I'm going to withdraw my motion for now because it sounds like we're having a conversation that might change.
yeah, I think in terms of the initial part of it, which is what you see, which is the 5%, 900 signatures. I think we have consensus that part people are comfortable with. And then the other part is the second part, which is the wording of voting. And the fact that it's 20% have to vote affirmatively in order to overturn.
20% of the registered voters, which is roughly 18.
So if we said instead 20% of folks have to turn out, which is, it sounds like, Pat, is in line with what you were saying other communities do, that the turnout just needs to be 20% or higher and then the vote stands majority.
I think it is, but what I would like to do is to make sure I do research on that.
Okay.
Let's come back to that and then, okay.
So you move this,
Because I know that's true for some other citizen petitions, and I want to make sure.
all right. So
Okay,
should we do this part individually or wait until we have the full language to do?
We're going to be going through the language in the charter, so if you want to put a pin in it until we hit it in the charter, that's too.
Okay, I think for your purposes, let's use 5% and 1,800. Let's make sure the language is in the charter about the 20% have to approve it, not just show up.
Well, I looked at what your special act says is 20% have to.
Right, okay,
So-
so that'll go in there.
right now.
Okay, and then we can come back and when we are going through that language, we can, if we want to debate that 20% have to approve it, that's fine.
And I'll
Again,
get
let's
some
keep in mind that this is an extraordinary something that will probably get a lot of people's attention, so.
Yeah.
So we'll come back at that. So there's no
action.
action here for us right now.
Okay, so that was all from this. Now, it's after 8:30, so we're probably not going to get into the draft. But the good thing is we've made so many decisions that the draft language itself will go pretty quickly for me explaining it because there's not that much left to decide in the chart.
So you're going to take what we have done in the discussion. You're going to incorporate anything that you didn't have into the charter draft you have.
Right. Although we mostly talked about bylaw things, but I will incorporate the finance.
Okay, and then the bylaw parts, just don't want to lose all of that. So, want to make sure that those are captured in a list, and we should probably ask the secretary, which I'm requesting right now, to make sure that the bylaw, where we've identified bylaw changes that we want to make, that is listed separately. I was hoping, Pat, that you guys keep track of that. So that in your role as consultant to us, you got the charter, but you're also going to capture the bylaw changes that we want to make. I don't want to lose them, so I'm throwing those on your plate.
Absolutely. And we were also going to restate,
What am I doing with them?
The notes about what?
Make notes, comments.
On these, we're gonna, those are the charters. That's
This is a based document presenting.
that is the
Draft
charter.
charter language.
That's the draft charter language, which we're gonna go through in its entirety in our next meeting. Okay, so, no, but if there's an update to this, are you gonna update it again?
the only item that would require an update would be adding the Ways and Means Committee, some of the information that we talked about Ways and Means. But I don't think we need to update it. I think that we'll update it
Okay.
along with any other changes.
So homework assignment for, and if you see, it says last edited September 9th.
No, that's the 12th.
All right, okay, yeah, September 12th.
And I'll continue to put the date on every time.
Yeah, please.
With the dates on, yeah.
So you know what,
Okay, September 12th is the one that everybody, if you have not reviewed it, your job, whether you choose to accept it or not, is to review it and make comments on it so that we can have a final and robust discussion at the next meeting. And we'll close out this portion. Is anybody have a problem with that? All right,
One question.
sure.
So there, it's still not entirely clear the great big process. We have each section that we've learned about, we discuss in depth. We get to the point where there's draft charter language.
Yeah.
We discuss the draft charter language and any adjustments. Then that portion of the charter sort of sits there. We go to the next section, go to the next section, repeat. Obviously, moments of public input where we might revisit things because people changed our minds.
Yeah.
And also, there's at least one spot at the very end to address any changes we've accumulated throughout.
Right.
Okay, that's what I want to make
And
sure.
I think as we go, like, as we get input, like from stakeholders, from others, that we will probably have to go back and revisit certain sections.
Yeah.
And we'll look to the Collins Center to help us manage that so we can stay structured in that.
I was just explicitly trying to make sure that there was a point before we're done where anything we've called up on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
absolutely. And I anticipate that this section and the executive branch are going to take the most time. So we will be, and the first time you go through charter language will take, the most time because you're getting familiar with the idea of it. And I think already from my listening to you, you have an idea of what's in the charter, what's in the bylaw, etc. So we will be picking up speed on some of these other sections, especially since when we made these decisions earlier, it will be very easy to put together. So that's, I anticipate speed, and you absolutely will have time at the end to, revisit these. The section, that we're approving, what you're doing is you're approving it as of to move forward to the next section. And then at the end, you'll have a chance to finalize all.
And then Betsy, I've been leaving the sort of takeaways. For me to email them to everybody for approval, or
I think you should read through them.
so from last week, this is what I remember. Tell me.
Well, let me ask you
Yeah.
what you're talking.
Just the communication points that are sort of, this is almost like what you just asked for with the like recommended changes to the bylaws. So at the beginning of the meeting, we said we're going to highlight the key messages that we would like to communicate with the public.
Yeah, I just, the changes we were just talking about. I'm unclear how much public, we're not ready to
No.
do any of it.
Perhaps just calling out the fact that we're discussing them in this meeting.
Yeah.
So that when people come to the site and they see, oh, September, what was in that one? They're not getting lost in the minutes. They can just say, oh, we discussed this, that kind of thing. It doesn't need to be, it's not a place to post the recommendation. It is a place to inform the public of anything we think, hey, take a look in here. We started talking about this.
Yeah. Last week we talked about keeping 3 town meetings a year, keeping 126 town meeting members, 18 precinct. We talked about, so those the key, and then we talked about moving the town moderator to a 3-year term. That I remember from last week.
Okay, so we are communicating our recommendations.
Well, this is what
This is where I'm,
We have not to do that.
I want to make sure that you're okay with it, but also none of this is going to get communicated until the website is built. And until we all agree together on a communication plan. But those are my takeaways
Yeah.
that I would put on that communication
Okay.
plan. Does that make sense?
yeah, and what, yes, those are the takeaways from that meeting, absolutely. It just,
There's nothing there that's particularly pointed.
Well, and we can talk more about it next week as well, as far as if we, or next time we meet, how, in what form we would like to communicate to the public. We can even bring you a sample, format.
I just need to think about
Yeah.
how we do that. So,
Yeah.
so go through the list, let's all think about it.
Yeah, and I can send it in text too, so I'll
I
read
think
it out
that-
now and
I
then
think
send it
I
in
think
text.
it's just better.
And then from today, what I got was, for recommendations, the town meeting handbook, and the rules committee to review, communications plan for town moderator, appointed committees, vacancies, so those are recommendations
Yeah.
we would send. Changes, finance committee, putting that in the charter with the rest of its bylaws. Changing the rules committee for town meeting for 3 years, 7 members. It seems like I wrote it 5 days ago. And change the description to align with the duties the committee currently performs. Change land use to 9 members, majority town meeting.
Yes.
That's it. I feel like and the last thing that I would write down that we talked about, which I will remember it right down. Okay, but those are my grand takeaways from this meeting.
Yeah.
And that's if I were writing a little post or a little blurb on the website, I would pull those out.
That's good. I think that's great. I think rather than going through the Excel spreadsheet with parking lot, the other stuff, I'm going to continue to upgrade that. I will send it out each time. If I miss anything, I want you to tell me. I don't know if it makes sense to take our time to go
Yeah.
through that each time. I need to just count on everybody to do that and.
And we'll bring up the things that are.
Right, and if your name is as the responsible person on it and you don't want to be the responsible person on it, it's up to you to get back to me and tell me. Because I'm just gonna assume you're doing it until you don't. Anything else before we close?
Next meeting is what?
The next meeting is back on our normal schedule, which is October, hold on, this is 16th, yes, October, Tuesday, the 7th,
Should be October 14th.
or 14th, sorry, yes. October 14th. Yeah, so October 14th is our next one. We're going to start off with some the communications group, and then Pat's going to walk us through the charter language for legislative branch. Okay. And so everybody's assignment again is to review the charter language that everybody should have. And then I will send out the minutes for the probably 2 meetings, hopefully, that we can get approved. Next one, and Nikki's going to send out the list of every communication points. We'll work on getting additional members, and you're going to let me know if anybody who you think might be good to join this group. Other than that, I'll take a motion.
Yeah.
Move to adjourn. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll say Jess.
Yep.
Okay, Russ.
Yep.
Steve.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay,
Next
that's
meeting, you
it.
get it.
All righty. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.